Here we go. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I see you're starting to sign up. So we'll just wait a little bit before I introduce you to my guest, Professor Amit Joshi, just to allow everybody to sign in, as it takes a little bit has a little bit of a lag before we have everybody signed up. So in the meantime, I can start thanking you, Amit, for being here with us this afternoon and explaining, you'll be explaining to us about the digital component in the MBA program. So again, I'm going to wait a few more seconds and then we can start. So as we were saying, you're not at IMD this afternoon. No, you're comfortably at home.
I am at home, yes.
Yes, and we're still sort of working between home and IMD. So,
although it's nice to be able to go there when you need to. So yeah. The systems that have been put into place are just fantastic at IMD. So we can really go back pretty safely.
Perfect. And in fact, yes, we were one of the first schools that actually allowed their MBAs to go back to campus. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of people will probably sign in a little bit later, but I think we should be Swiss and try and be super punctual. So let's get into it. So Amit, thank you for being here this afternoon with us, with our attendees. I can never say that word. Can you tell us a little bit about why I have invited you today?
So before that, first of all, thanks everyone for joining in today. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you. And again, I'm just in a bit of an introduction. I'm Amit Joshi. I'm a professor of AI analytics and marketing strategy at IMD. I interact and I teach and I work extensively with our MBA cohort every year. I've been at IMD for about 3 years. Before that, I was in the United States. I was in Florida for about 11 or 12 years as a professor there. And before that, I was getting my PhD at UCLA. So I've been involved with MBA programs for a really long time. This is one of the aspects of IMD that I enjoy the most, right? It's interacting with super smart, super motivated young folks such as yourselves, sharing knowledge. I learn a lot from them, and hopefully I can impart a little bit of knowledge to them. So I'm really, really thrilled to be here this afternoon for Marcella and myself, but perhaps it's morning or later on in the evening for some of you folks, depending on where you're joining us from. But either which way, I'm thrilled that you're here. I'm thrilled to be here to talk a little bit about some of the things that I do with our MBAs, and very, very specifically, this thing that I started off last year, which was the digital analytics boot camp, right? It's a week-long digital analytics boot camp that we started at IMD that I lead, which I honestly believe is pretty much the only one of its kind amongst top MBA programs anywhere in the world. So I'm really, really excited to share what we do with you folks.
Okay, so let's get straight into it. So it already took place. So what happened? And can you explain to us also, you said it's one of a kind. So why do you think it's important that we had to have it?
So let's see. I mean, I think that's a good place to start, Marcella. Thanks for bringing that up. Let's back up a little bit, right? I mean, MBAs are supposed to be generalist programs. The idea behind an MBA is that whether it's a 1-year MBA or a 2-year MBA in a top school, the idea is that we churn out generalists. We churn out people who have very, very high quality of knowledge across a range of business disciplines and maybe a little bit of depth of knowledge in a couple of areas. Now, within IMD, the depth of knowledge usually comes in areas such as leadership, and in other schools, it might come in other areas, like finance or marketing or operations. What has happened over the last, I'm going to say 5 or 7 years, is the sheer proliferation of big data that's there has meant that irrespective of what function you are going to join after your MBA, okay, irrespective of what division you're going to join, irrespective almost of what type of company you're going to join, you will be handling data. You'll be handling large quantities of data. Very, very likely, there will be some expectation that you know how to handle that data. You know at least the basics of some programming, perhaps, quote unquote, some of the hard skills, right? Case in point, Amazon. Every Amazon interview that takes place, and I mean irrespective of what you're joining for, you could be joining Amazon in HR, they will ask you to program in SQL in the interview. There's just no two ways about it. That's just done thing. Because once you're inside Amazon, there's a very, very good chance, there's almost a sure chance that you will be using that programming to run your own reports on the massive, crazy database that they have. Now, invariably, business schools were not built to kind of deliver this kind of knowledge, right? Business schools are phenomenal at delivering, very, very specific knowledge, like I said, in operations and marketing and finance, strategy. But hardcore programming, hardcore data analytics, not just from the perspective of making you a data scientist, but analytics so that you can make decisions based off of that. That's a very specialized skills. And business schools, by and large, are not geared to do those kinds of things. Right? You don't do those kinds of things typically maybe in the engineering school or in the mathematics or statistics departments of universities. This is where this particular week comes in, right? So like I said, other organizations, other schools, top business schools, and I've spoken with my friends and colleagues at Yale and MIT and Stanford and University of Chicago, INSEAD, London Business School. I've spoken to my friends and colleagues all over the place. They have an elective where you can learn programming. They have a course where they can teach you about handling large data. There is no place that in an integrative exercise fashion makes it a core course. It's a compulsory course that the entire cohort takes, wherein you have to learn Python programming, and then you have to use that Python programming to analyze a crazy, huge, messy, large data set. And you've got to do all of this in a competitive fashion.
And right? in the space of a week.
This is all in the space of about a week or about eight or 9 days, because the way we set it up this time is we took 2.5 days about a month ago to give people the basics of Python programming. So it was a 2.5 day deep dive, almost a pretty intense deep dive into just Python programming. And again, in a typical cohort, we have maybe about 15 or 20% of our participants who have some programming experience, may not be with Python, but some programming experience. The other 70 or 80% of them have no programming experience whatsoever.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. So,
and also we pride ourselves that we choose our class, for its diversity. So we want also those people that have absolutely no experience whatsoever. So how do you deal with those? I mean, we've had people from the forces, we have people who are doctors. How do help?
Absolutely. So it's funny you should mention that. So this time we have a person who is MD, Doctor of Medicine. We always get a couple of those. We have a person who served on a submarine. We have and these people probably have never been exposed to programming ever in their lives. So we start from the super basics, right? We start from, what do you need to do on your computer to load Python, then open Python and write hello world, basic stuff, which, by the way, for the 15 or 20 who have done programming might be a little boring, but that's okay. It's totally worth it just going through the process again. And we handhold you through the basics of programming. By the way, this happens at an individual level. This is not at a team level. So at an individual level, you're expected to know at least the basics. So in the first 2.5 days, we give you the basics of how to use Python, how to do programming, how to visualize data. And this is the knowledge building phase. Once you're ready with those 2.5 days and you've got some individual assignments to work on, that's when this week starts, at the end of this 2.5 days. Now, in this week, you're put in team, right? So now you work in teams. So you still apply your programming knowledge, but usually in a team of about 4 or 5 people, there's typically one person who has some kind of interest / experience in programming. and then you take it off, and then it's the teamwork, and then the team takes it off from there.
Okay.
So
And
the
do you
rest of the week
deliver,
is all team.
right? And do you deliver this all by yourself?
So it's me that's leading it, and I have a fantastic team of coaches that help me. So because it's Python programming and because it's very technical with massive amounts of data set, we've some of you might know we have a world-class technical institute right next to us. It's called EPFL. It's like the MIT of Switzerland. As a matter of fact, in a recent worldwide university ranking, EPFL was ranked, I believe, 6th or 7th in the world.
Yep, way up there. Yeah.
It's just an insanely high quality institution. So we bring over about 5 or 6 of those kids, and I say kids because they are undergraduates in computer science.
So they're 20-year-olds.
They're 20-year-olds, and they are so smart. It's just scary.
Yeah.
They're super nice, and they love coming here, and they love working with our MBAs.
How does that work? Can I ask a sort of an insider question? How does it work so that these 20-year-olds are actually teaching our 30-somethings? How?
So we are very careful on the role of these people, right? So what we say is, hey, look, for example, we divide the MBAs into 15 teams. Let's say we've got 5 coaches from EPFL. A coach is assigned specifically to 3 teams. And we tell them, hey, look, these kids are not going to solve your problems. Okay. So for example, if you're stuck and we've given you a task with this crazy big data set, you can't tell these people, hey, sit here and do this for me, because they can do it. They're just that smart.
Yeah.
They will help you do it. Okay, so their goal is to guide you. And we've told them, you will not write programs for them. Let them struggle. Let them fail. Let them get frustrated. And that's what happens. It's just incredible. It's just incredible. So that's the role of these kids. You know what's amazing for me? You know, when a 30-year-old MBA, who are kids, you know, for a lot of our faculty, when a 30-year-old MBA comes to me and tells me, these guys look like kids, that's when I know these guys are really young.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And they are. I mean, like you said, at EPFL, they're super smart. They are really top level, and I think it must be also for them quite enriching to be able to see the world from the IMD insider perspective. You know, with a bunch of 90 people from all over the world, the diversity in backgrounds and cultural, whether and professional. So I guess there's an exchange that happens there.
Without a question, right? I mean, because they're very technical, they're exposed a lot to the technical side, but the kinds of life experiences and the kinds of business acumen that our people bring in, these guys love the interaction.
Yeah.
They, at the end of every year, so last year I had the same group of people, other than people who graduated, and this year again, I had most of them came back, and next year they said, hey, just let us know when it is, we're going to show up. They absolutely love it. Absolutely
wonderful. Yeah. Okay, so so I'm going to ask a sort of a how did you do it question, because of course this year it was online. I mean, everybody was working from home. So how did you organize this digital lab?
So yeah, that's a very, very important question. So the first 2.5 days that I mentioned, where we talk about Python programming and visualization, that was completely 100% online. Completely 100% online. Folks were in their homes. We were on campus on Zoom with my team with me. The coaches were, again, they were told to be at home but available, and we had set WhatsApp groups so that people from their homes could directly connect with the coaches while we were teaching to solve problems in the background. Wow. And it worked wonderfully. Yeah, it was a lot of moving parts, as you can imagine, right? Lots of moving parts, but it worked actually quite well. Okay, and the only flip side was our MBAs were working till 8 and 9 and 10 at night, and they were bugging the coaches, but these guys were fine with that. So
and it was just for that time. So these were the two intro days, let's say. So what happened during the week, the bootcamp week?
So during the week, we were lucky that Switzerland lifted the strict quarantine, so we could have rooms of 45 people. So we split up the MBAs into 2 groups of 45, and then we delivered lectures to 45 people at one time, and then went back and delivered the same lecture to the other 45. And then the way we designed it is, while we're delivering content to one group of 45, the other 45 are working on some kind of assignment or task, And then when we come here, these people are working on tasks. So it worked beautifully. It was quite seamless.
Okay. And the small groups could work on campus as well.
Correct.
By that time.
Correct.
So
Correct. By that time, the small groups could work on campus and they had their own separate breakout rooms. Absolutely, yes.
okay. I'm just going to take a 1 minute housekeeping. For anyone who has any questions, by all means, please use the little Q&A box at the end of the screen instead of the chat box. So it's much more manageable for me to see them, and then I can read them out to Amit. So do go ahead and ask him any questions that you might have. Okay, so with that done, so of course you're also the marketing professor. So how does digital come in? How do you slot that in there in your marketing part?
So what I try to do is, I mean, the goal of this week is to make sure that what we are teaching, whether it's programming or whether it's analysis of massive data sets, it's very, very applied, right? So to that end, what I've done is that the data set that we give them, and I can tell you this, so even if you're going to join us next year, this is not going to matter because the data set will change. It's an Airbnb data set. Okay, and we actually give them very specific marketing problems to solve, saying, hey, you're working for Airbnb, you want to come up with a way to predict prices. How much should you price a home at on Airbnb? Mm-hmm. And you've got 2 million lines of data or something like that, which is just absurd. You've got hundreds of what we call explanatory variables. So what we do is we reduce it to a very, very marketing problem, to a very, very strategic kind of an issue. So we, in some senses, we are combining programming skills, analysis of massive data set with an applied focus towards something like marketing, right, or strategy. Mm-hmm. And that's how all of this really comes together. And this fits in nicely with my background, since by training I'm also a marketing analytics person. So my training itself is in econometrics and statistics and analysis of massive data sets. So this kind of ties in quite nicely in that sense.
Okay, and that's also pretty much what our MBA always focuses on, the sort of the application of what you learn, the sort of the project work, the getting your hands dirty, and not just leaving it at the theoretical stage. So fits in perfectly with our teaching technique or style. Yeah. Yes, philosophy. I'm getting a little bit distracted because I'm seeing that there's a couple of questions coming up. So one of them is from Jonathan, and hi Jonathan, I remember you. So he thanks you, and he says it's an amazing opportunity to learn a new language in the program. His question is, considering that achieving Python excellence takes considerable amount of time and effort because it's extremely technical, would it be useful for a business consultant to learn some Tableau, R language on the side, since it's it's a little bit simpler, but still high level analysis tool?
So it's funny you should mention that, Jonathan. We actually do cover Tableau. Right. So what we do is we say we encourage you to visualize using Tableau. I mean, you don't have to, you can visualize using whatever, but for visualize, we actually encourage using Tableau. So that's absolutely, yes, we make resources available. Again, we have coaches who can take you through Tableau, and we actually take you through a Tableau tutorial in the 2.5-day, pre-boot camp that I mentioned. Mm-hmm. R is an interesting one. So we gave a lot of thought to actually, should we make this whole thing in R or should we make it in Python? And we eventually settled on Python for 2 reasons. The first reason is that Python has a much bigger library, if you might know, than R. R is very good specifically for statistical things, but for general things, Python is better. Secondly, our goal is, it's not per se to teach you a language. Right? Look, after 2.5 days of teaching you Python, none of you are going to join Google as a programmer. That's not going to happen. Right? The goal here is to get you to think like a programmer. It's get you to think in an algorithmic, systematic way. And once you do that, the rest is just syntax. Whether you're doing R or whether you're doing C++ or whether you're doing Python, it's a question of understanding the syntax once you start thinking the right way. So our goal was, can we take a group of people who have never programmed before, get them to think like programmers, and then use that thought process to solve complex problems. Right. So that's where that comes from.
Okay. Thank you, Amit. Jonathan, I hope that was helpful, Amit's answer. So I have another one from Rohit, who is in the incoming class, in the 2021 class. And he says that he has experience consulting in the area of information governance and advising enterprise on their data strategy. Would that help him after an MBA, or maybe during the digital week, or how valuable could that experience be to him?
I'm sure something like that is going to be valuable, right? I mean, I'm sure something like that will help you, for example, visualize the problem better. You can really contribute a lot to your team in terms of how the data might be organized, for example. How much it helps you through the MBA and after the MBA, of course, is a much deeper question that we can chat whenever you're here on campus, right? Because that depends on what your goals are after the MBA, what kind of interests you have, what kind of a career you're looking at, what exact experience you're bringing in. But specifically for the digital week, I suspect that it's going to help you at least a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And in any case, I would imagine, like for every other subject, there's still a lot of help and exchange in between the participants, so that if we do have some who are experts because of their engineering background or the technical background, and some, like we were saying, the doctors or the submarine commanders, then obviously part of the IMD experience is also allowing for that exchange to happen.
Correct.
And really building that teamwork, that support group between each other. So if nothing at all, it will certainly help you gel with the rest of the team. Okay, I have another question. What did the students that went through this experience comment in terms of key takeaways?
So it's amazing, right? So during the actual week, and I'm going to answer that question in terms of an anecdote. During the actual week, we divide the tasks into three buckets, if you will. So we give you a really dirty data set that you've got to clean. So first you've got to clean the data set, then you've got to analyze the data set using standard regression and techniques like that. And finally, you've got to visualize the data set. And all three of these tasks occur in a competitive setting. So like I said, you'll be divided into teams. Teams will be competing. And here's the real fun part. The results of where you stand are shown real time to everyone on massive boards all across campus. So at any given time, you know exactly where you're standing. So what percentage of data have you cleaned, and where does that stand in comparison with all the other 15 teams that are?
So no pressure.
No pressure, right? So on the first evening itself, we had organized dinner, and I was expecting dinner gets over at 8 or 8:30 p.m. People will hang around till 9:30 cleaning data. So I left. I come back the next day. People tell me they waited till 10 o'clock. They had planned to leave at 10 o'clock. Then they realized they were just a few percentage points behind the other team. So they waited another half an hour. Then the other team went ahead. Next thing they know, it's 3 a.m. in the morning, and they're still working on the problem. No,
Don't scare us.
This is the beauty of it, right? I mean, these are people who coming in probably had the same apprehension about programming and data analytics that some of you do. Like, I'm never going to like this. This is horrible. This is never going to be fun. I'll never get this. And then here they are, basically burning the midnight oil, having a blast, having an absolute blast doing this. And that to me is the essence of learning, right? I mean, when something like this becomes passion, that's when you're really learning. And I could just sense the passion. By the end of the week, the same people who had backgrounds in, like I said, medicine or something like that, they were talking in a lingo. They were talking in words which just blew my mind. You know, they were talking about algorithms and syntax, and they were talking about for loops. It was just unbelievable. So again, to directly answer your question, the feedback has been sensational. And of course, we ended all in a massive party to celebrate. So it was one heck of a week.
And so you're definitely doing it again.
Oh, without a question. We've already blocked dates for next year. It's set.
Okay,
Yeah.
and in fact, I have a question regarding that. So several market observers have predicted more digital disruption as a result of COVID adjustments that may stick. As such, are you planning any corresponding changes to the corresponding curriculum, or does the curriculum evolve from year to year anyway? So what's your answer to that?
Yeah, no, our curriculum is never set. The curriculum always evolves. Just this year, when I taught my marketing core, for example, I believe I taught it in March, April-ish. I don't remember exactly, but sometime that, when Switzerland had just begun the lockdown, right? And the entire first part of my marketing course was marketers' response to COVID, the best practices and what they should do. So by next year, for sure, things are going to change. For sure, we will have new content, and for sure, the curriculum is going to change. So don't worry about that.
And in any case, the curriculum sort of adapts from one cohort to the next, in the sense that we always take the feedback, we adapt it. I'm sure it's not what you delivered today. I mean, apart from COVID, it's not the same that you delivered in the first year that you ran the lab.
The overlap is small. Let's put it that way. The overlap is small. There's always different contexts. There's always different cases, guests. Yes.
Guests. What do you mean guests? So you have
guest speakers, guest speakers. So this year, in between, for example, the Digital Week, we had an alumnus from, I believe she was from the 2013 cohort, who heads analytics for Expedia. So she's basically the head of digital analytics for the Expedia group, and she was kind enough to join us. And she gave some absolutely, and by the way, previously she was with Amazon. So she gave some absolutely fascinating use cases on the things that people were doing as an exercise, what she's doing with those things in real life. So the connection was absolutely fantastic.
Right. And what I can see in all this conversation is your enthusiasm, and it seems like you have fun doing it.
I love this. This is one of my favorite weeks at IMD. I can't lie. It's just amazing.
So we have it. So did this fall in the usual timing, or did we even change timing due to COVID?
We did change timing this year due to COVID. We had to change things around a little bit because of the uncertainty with the Discovery Expedition and some of the other events, like elements that happen in a usual year. I hope and I suspect that next year we'll be back to more normal timings. So
because that was normally that's end
August,
of August.
Yes.
In August. So, and that also part of the whole thing, you were able to reschedule everything, reschedule the kids from the EPFL, all that fell into place.
Yes. And I think that's a great general point. And I think the speed with which IMD reorganized in the face of COVID was just mind-blowing. And any of you folks, you can reach out to the current cohort and ask for their opinions. You don't have to take my opinion as a faculty, which might be biased. But I'm in contact with my colleagues in the United States in top schools. I've seen what other schools here have done. And I'm telling you, while a lot of the other universities were paralyzed as to what we should do, how we can pull this off, we were already implementing things. We had already implemented Zoom classes as a small thing, but a lot of the changes, a lot of the, not just changes to method of delivery, but changes to the curriculum, for example. Because that's one amazing thing about IMD, which is it's just such an incredibly entrepreneurial place, and the spirit of all of the community is just amazing in this context.
Okay, I have another question. Ihab, thank you for the question. Can you though all keep the questions on the Q&A? Otherwise, as I said, it's a little bit confusing for me to look at the Q&A section and the chat. But I've seen it, it's on the chat. So thank you, Ihab. Thank you, Amit, for Ihab. It's an awesome session. So thank you for that. So he wants to ask if there's any AI ML opportunities during the Digital Analytics Week or during the duration of the program.
So the answer is yes and yes. So in the Digital Analytics Week itself, we train you on how to run neural networks. So we will train you on machine learning. We will give you the tools. What was amazing for me is this time, I believe it was 4 or 5 of the 15 groups, so roughly 30% actually used machine learning. They used neural networks to come up with a solution. I believe the team that actually won the analysis, the top 2 of the 3 in analysis had used machine learning to come up with the best possible solution. So absolutely yes. So in the Analytics Week, we are going to give you hands-on experience of machine learning. even otherwise in the, I also offer an elective on marketing analytics or business analytics. And in that, I talk a little bit about machine learning, artificial intelligence, and its kinds of applications. So the answer to your question is yes, without a doubt.
So basically there is that's also your theme in your marketing class, the digital lab, and your elective.
Yep.
You're the data man at IMD.
I'm the quantitative guy, yeah.
Yes. And having said that, do you have, I mean, once you deliver these, the marketing classes, the digital lab, and then the elective, do you have any more contact with the participants?
Oh yeah, so I also advise them on their ICP. So I've got a ICP, for those of you, it's an international consulting project wherein we line up actual real life projects with real companies, which are given to you depending on your areas of interest. We try to match your areas of interest. So for example, if some of you is interested in pharmaceuticals, we try to match you with the pharmaceutical project or industrials, whatever that is. And you have a faculty advising you on that project. And this is a 7-week complete immersion, which you have to deliver for the organization. It's like a consulting project. So I'm advising on a project for a company this time. But even outside, right? I mean, even other than this, I'm always available. I always meet with people regarding their startup projects, for example, which is something they do very early on in the year.
And is it always with a digital lens? Is that always your focus, or?
So it's not necessarily with the digital lens. It could also be very, very strategic, for example. It could be related to transformation. Or with the startup, it's more of innovation and the kinds of ecosystems. So those kinds of things, absolutely.
Okay. So in any case, you're part of the integral faculty team that follows the MBA all the way through.
Yes. If you show up next year, you'll be seeing a lot of me. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So is there anything, Amit, that you think that our possible participants next year might need to know still that we haven't, that I haven't asked or they haven't asked? Not just about the digital week, but perhaps about IMD, about the learning philosophy. What we were saying, when you introduced yourself, you said, I love learning, and sometimes I sort of managed to give you some instruction as well. And I just picked up on that because I remember that one of the professors said that a lot of the IMD learning happens in the class. There's about 500 years of work experience amongst the 90. And so he was saying, well, I'm 58 years old. What can I teach you? So I just picked up on that to how do you live that?
So, so the couple of things that struck me about IMD after I came here from the United States, and I've seen some really top programs in the United States, was the power of the exclusivity of the batch, right? I mean, the cohort is only 90 people. The smallest cohort in the US that I've heard of is, I think, 250, 300 people. And in a cohort of 250, 300 people, you're never really getting to know each other really well. You have a small group of 5 or 10 people who are friends, but the rest of them are your cohort. Here, because you are 90 strong, you take all classes together, all the core classes together, you do activities together. You're going to be under insane amounts of pressure in the first few months after you join, right? I mean, I'm sure you've heard of stories from alumni about, the first few months and how you spend it basically in the dungeons and don't see your families and all that stuff.
I mean, we don't like that word. We don't like that word.
It's amazing. So I recently met some alumni, and a couple of them are actually billionaires, right? I mean, it's just incredible. And they were talking about that, and they were talking about it with such fondness, saying that we have such amazing memories of that. Not when it was happening, right? We hated it when it was happening, but looking back, those are amazing memories. But again, the point I'm making is that environment, that culture allows you to become closer to these 89 other people than you would ever have imagined. And as a consequence, become a better person. And I know it's a very cliche kind of a thing, but really, really become a better manager, but to a certain extent, even a better person, in terms of understanding cultures, in terms of understanding, different societies and norms and language and food, and how somebody else approaches a problem or how somebody else tackles a difficult situation. So this truly is a very, very holistic learning environment, just squeezed into 1 year. It's really, really intense, but it's amazing fun.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. You obviously, you could see the enthusiasm and the joy that you have at participating in the program. So if for now we don't have any more questions, then I'm happy to cut now, to finish off now. I think we gave quite a good overview without saying too much, because we do want to keep the element of surprise as well. About the digital week, as well as about the importance of digital overall, as you explained to us, that now no matter where you go, what company, what role, you'll still have to deal with some form of data and some form of programming. I mean, what is amazing now is my 15-year-old son, he's learning Python on YouTube. So
there you go. There's no escape.
Exactly. So I wanted to thank you very much, Amit, for giving us your time this afternoon. To all of you who attended our live chat, thank you for being there. I recognize a couple of names. I know that we've been in touch, so it's nice that you've made it this afternoon. We will have next month, our schedule for the live chat is not completely up. We'll certainly have one on the 20th of August on admission. So if you're looking to apply for the last deadline on September 1st, by all means do sign up on the live chat, and you'll have the recording in case you missed it, or you want to watch it again. Once again, Amit, thank you so much. Have a lovely afternoon, and goodbye for now. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Marcella. Bye-bye.